welcome to the making of Ariel's blue dress, the corset. These are my pattern pieces, and I shall be using, I had quite a number of different corset patterns which I've collected over the years, but what I wanted is this one with the V, and this is a new look pattern, 6480. I have to stress though, when I got the instructions out, there was actually no instructions for doing this V, except for clipping it after you put it together, so we'll try and muddle through that later on. Now, many people are under the illusion that this corset is black. It is not black, it is a dark navy blue, and if you look closely enough at the pictures you can see quite a difference between black and the colour of her corset, and if you look at her shoes as well, they are navy. Okay people? Especially this photo here, you can see that's quite clearly black, and that is not black. Right, got that? Okay, these are my outer layer pieces, and I'm using this lovely navy blue velvet. See, this one is the centre front, then middle front, side back, and then the back. The next thing to do would be to put all my pieces together, and I'm also using, this will be my second layer. It's called Corset Couture, and if you watch my other videos, I've only ever used a very sort of lightweight white stiffener, but since then I've had some advice on how to make corsets a little bit more and bodices a bit more shapy, if you like to put it, and I was recommended to use this Corset Couture, which I reused in my Christine Daae dress, because the video on YouTube showed me using the interfacing, but we actually went back and redid it after using this instead and put boning in it, which we'll show you later on. But anyway, this has already been put together, which is exactly what I'm going to do with my outer layer, and I'll be using this navy blue. Just let me straighten that out a bit, it's a bit awkward trying to film at the same time. This navy blue, it's a very thin cotton. It reminds me very much of what your old school skirts were made out of if you wore navy blue to school, with those pleats in them. But this one's just been tacked at the minute. So that'll be my lining. So this will be my stiffener, and it is extremely stiff. I expect you can get even stiffer than this, but it is really hard to pin through, so basically you just have to put the pieces together and machine them as soon as you've done, just holding them as you go along basically. There we go, but as that one's done, next thing I'm going to do is just pin and tack this together, and then I will sew it, and I will sew my cotton lining as well. Okay, I've now sewn my outer layer, my navy cotton velvet. I've sewn all the panels together. This is the couture, the second layer, and the lining, which is like the very thin navy cotton that I showed you earlier. The next thing we have to do is, well, I'll show you on this one because I've already done it, but you have to clip into your corners on the seams. Pair of scissors, careful not to clip to the sewing line, as I've said before in my other videos, because you will cut through your sewing line and then all your stitches will come undone. So the reason that we cut is because at the moment, as you can see on this one, it's doing this funny business where it doesn't want to bend very easily, and it's kind of sticking up a bit, and you can sort of see it on this one here. So that's the reason that we have to clip into the seams, especially more at corners than the straighter edges. So then hopefully then we'll get a nice smooth round curve there on each side. Okay, next step is take your coutil with the wrong side facing the wrong side of your lining, and what we're going to do is line up the seams, make sure they've been ironed flat, and then I should be pinning those together to make sure that all the seams are joined together, ready for putting the boning sleeves in. Okay, boning channels I meant to say, and if you've ever worked with coutil before, you'll know how stiff it is to try and get your pins through, so you might get through a few bent pins by the time you're finished. I'm feeling for the seams with my fingers and then pinning the seam down through both layers. And then you'll do that with all the seams. Is it important to start at the front, or?
I'd always start with the front seams, yeah, and work my way backwards. Okay, now we've joined both the sections together, lining and the coutil. I've pinned all the seams to make sure they all match, and as you're doing this you've got to really stretch both of the fabrics so you get any creases out. And now I'm going to make some channels, and there'll be one for each of the seams, and then I'm going to put an extra channel here and another one at the other end where we decided to do loops on our corset, so I just need to allow about 5/8 of an inch for a turn in, and then I'm going to do another channel for a piece of steel almost at the end. So to do that we've chosen 7mm wide steel boning. So from the seam line I'm going to do a channel of 1 centimetre, so I shall have to come out 1/2 centimetre this side and 1/2 centimetre the other side of all the seams, and then going back to this one, that one will be 1 centimetre wide as well.
Okay, we've now sewn our boning channels described before. You take your seam and then you measure 1/2 centimetre this way, do a sewn line, and 1/2 centimetre away, do your sewn line as we described, and every single one. And then we have the one at the end here. That's more or less what it should end up looking like at this stage. As you can see, you lift it up, and there we go. Okay, for my back opening on the corset I've decided to do loops. I'm using this very fine, smooth navy blue cord that matches more or less the same colour. And what we've done, as you can see here, sorry about the lighting, but we started at the top on the side on the lining. As you saw earlier, we sewed our coutil and our boning channels ready for the boning later. On your lining side you'll be attaching this cord. At the moment we've just pinned it in place to make sure that it all looks right, and basically you do your loops in, and you'll see why later on. And I've managed to fit about 9 loops on mine so far. try and match up our loops on the other side so that they correspond with the loops we did on that right hand side of the corset there.
So it's very fiddly and it's not very good light, so apologies for that.
Okay, after pinning our loops down, the next thing we've done is to actually sew over. You can just see there in the light, we've sewn over the loops as far in as you can see there. Don't sew this part of the loop down. We've only put tack in there just to hold them out the way. That's the white thread you can see, because you'll need to and end up looking like that to thread your lacing through later. What we've done for extra strength is to sew 3 lines of sewing, 1, 2, 3, and that's go over every loop all the way down right to the bottom, and the same on the other side, just for extra strength, like so. Now I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to take my outer layer of velvet, because what I was going to do is sew some lace on the top. I bought this lovely navy blue lace trim I thought would look quite nice, which is about 2 inches wide. The next thing I've done is I've got my lace, and starting at the very edge on this left hand side, I've pinned and tucked it in place. I'll be sewing roughly where I put these pins, but I'll be taking those out in a minute. I just wanted to keep them to show you where I'll be sewing down, because the lighting's not very good again. And the tacking is just to hold it in place. And then it's always best to leave your excess on for now. At the end there, and I'll show you what we'll do next. Right, the next step is to have your velvet outer layer facing upwards, and then take the other two, the lining on your cortial as shown earlier. Make sure your lining is facing down and your cortial should be showing towards you. The next thing I'm going to do is, starting from the middle at the top, is to pin these two together in place. So I'm just going to go on and do that now, and I'll show you after I finished. Okay, I've now pinned all the way across the top to each end, and I've also lined up my edges and just put a pin there and pins down the other side so they all line up. And then I got my pattern piece that came with the pattern, and I need to make the lines for the V shape at the front, and you just basically follow the guidelines for a bit of help on the pattern itself and mark out your V. Next I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to start sewing from the bottom of the corset. Where my fingernail is, your sewing line is going to be between where this tacking is holding the loops and where one of those sewing lines was earlier, where we first went over the loops. So just be sewing there between those two lines, the white one and that one. And then we're going to go right up to the top, and then I'm going to sew about 1 centimetre in across the top, all the way along until we get to that V, and then I'll stop and follow the line of the V on the machine. So you might have to just turn this around while you've got your needle in the sewing machine. Just follow the V, you're going all the way down the other side, and then again on the same on this side between the white tacking and that third line coming in, so right way down to the bottom. Okay, we've now sewn that line as explained earlier all the way around and around the top. That's where the V was. So you can see quickly what I've done. The next we do is just clip like so. So at the top edge and the other top edge. The reason why we cut like this at the corners is to take away the bulk.
To the V.
Alright, next thing we're doing is cutting the V.
Be very careful.
Yes.
Not to cut the sewing. And then just cut down, taking away the excess. Like so.
Okay.
Now the whole thing's got to be turned inside out. If you haven't quite got that cut far enough, you'll have to.
We've now turned the corset the right way out, and we're going to give it a good press with the iron, and we put some pins in just to hold it in place while we're ironing it. Now we're ironing with a damp cloth because it's velvet that I'm using, and we don't really want to ruin the velvet. And this is the lining side facing up that you can see. And we will do that all the way along the top and down the other side the same.